My Lord, ladies and gentlemen, it's with great pleasure that I welcome you to Royal College Day, our annual general meeting, council meeting and awards ceremony. I'd like to read out the loyal message from our patron, Her Majesty the Queen. Please convey my warm thanks to the President and Council of the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons for their loyal greetings on the occasion of their annual general meeting and Royal College Day, which is taking place today at the Royal Institute of British Architects. As your patron, I much appreciate your message and in return send my best wishes to you for a memorable and successful meeting.
President, we now turn to the results of the 2006 Council election. Turnouts in both Council and Veterinary Nursing Council elections rose this year with 4,403 veterinary surgeons and 1,435 veterinary nurses voting. In order, those elected are as follows. Christopher Barker, 2,838 votes. Amanda Bogue, 2,689. Kit Sturgis, 2,586. Melissa Donald, 2,532. Stephen May, 2,452. Lucy Goodwin, 2,307. I hereby declare the first 6 named to be elected members of the Council for a period of 4 years. Of these, Dr. Melissa Donald and Miss Lucy Goodwin are new to Council. Mr. Christopher Barker, Miss Amanda Bogue, Dr. Kit Sturgis and Professor Stephen May are existing members who've been elected for a further 4 years.
I would now like to formally welcome our new members to Council. The following members retire from Council today: Dr. Barry Johnson, Professor Joe Price, Dr. Richard Stevenson. We said a formal goodbye to them at our recent June Council meeting and thanked everyone for their very significant contributions over their combined 42 years on Council. I have to say that Barry did a great job in bumping up the average, clocking up an amazing 112 council meetings. I don't know who was counting, but that is now recorded as fact.
Turning now to the Veterinary Nurses Council election. As I already mentioned, the Veterinary Nurses Council election took place earlier this year. There were 6 candidates for 2 places. In order, those elected were as follows: Matthew Rendo with 547 votes, and Rachel Marshall with 537 votes.
I'm delighted to invite Rachel Marshall to come forward to the stage before taking her place with the VN Council. I'm now delighted to invite Matthew Rendell to come forward to the stage before taking his place with the VN Council. Okay, I can also announce that Penny Swindlehurst and Lizzie Figg will be retiring from VN Council today. I'm pleased to say that Penny has been able to join us today for her last meeting, so welcome, Penny. Lizzie has served with us for 4 years on Council as an elected member, and Penny has 8 years as an appointed layperson. I'd like to thank them both for their valuable contributions. But today, we say goodbye to Cathy Kizik, who's past chair of VN Council. In Cathy's 3 years as chair of Veterinary Nursing Council, she's actively promoted the role of the veterinary nurse through public speaking, as well as being a tremendous ambassador for the profession. Her specific achievements during her time as chair, and perhaps the most profound, was her helping put in place the new Royal Charter, which provides the legal underpinning for veterinary nurses to be regulated by the RCVS. She was also the first veterinary nurse to sit on the RCVS operational board.
My Lord, ladies and gentlemen, it's with great pleasure that I welcome our award recipients and their guests to Royal College Day and the presentation of awards here at the Royal Institution of British Architects.
We begin proceedings with the celebration of the RCVS Queen's Medal. Our patron, Her Majesty the Queen, has kindly given her permission for this honour to be named after her. This honour is awarded to a veterinary surgeon for a lifetime of outstanding contributions to the profession, who has dedicated their career to working above and beyond the call of duty in the fields of veterinary medicine or science or related areas. It's the highest honour that the college can bestow.
I'm delighted to announce that the recipient of this year's Queen's Medal will be Professor Randolph Harvey Richards, and it is an absolute pleasure to award Randolph the Queen's Medal today. A long-time advocate of animal welfare, particularly the often neglected fish, Randolph's commitment to research and influencing policy has made him one of the most highly respected veterinarians in the profession. Randolph is currently Emeritus Professor at the Institute of Aquaculture at the University of Stirling, as well as a member of the editorial board of the Veterinary Record and Vice Chairman of the Moradin Foundation. He began his veterinary career at the University of Cambridge, where he graduated in 1972, before accepting a Nuffield Scholarship at the University of Stirling the following year. He stayed on at Stirling for his PhD, which he completed in 1979, while somehow also managing to find time to act as Deputy Director of Stirling's Unit of Aquatic Pathobiology, later in the Institute of Aquaculture. He would eventually come to be made Director of that institute in 1996, a post he would hold for the next 13 years. Randolph has also been an invaluable member of numerous veterinary committees and advisory groups, as well as a trustee and director of several companies and organisations. He's coordinated large EU research programmes on fish diseases, particularly focusing on drug interactions and therapeutic approaches to disease control, published more than 150 papers, and has been involved with more than 50 national and international committees, delegations, and advisory groups. In 2008, Randolph was recognised with a Commander of the Order of the British Empire Award for his national service to veterinary science, particularly the major role he played in the development of the Institute of Aquaculture and the emerging aquaculture industry in Scotland. From 1989, he served as veterinary advisor to a succession of key industry associations, including the Scottish Salmon Growers Association, Scottish Quality Salmon, and the Scottish Salmon Producers Organisation. I hope he's brought some salmon with us today. His work has not only enhanced the welfare of the fish that form the meat of the industry, but contributed significantly to Scotland's economy by helping to change the landscape of the entire Scottish salmon farming industry. Randolph is already a Fellow of the Royal Society of Edinburgh and Fellow of the Royal Society of Medicine, and we're proud now to add the Queen's Medal, the most prestigious honour we can bestow upon a veterinary surgeon, to his list of awards. A major theme of the Vet Futures project has been the wide range of important roles that veterinarians can play in our society, and Randolph is a fine example of that. In recognition of your immense achievements, Professor Richards, I would like to present you with the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons Queen's Medal 2016.
My Lord, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, I am both delighted and honoured to be the recipient of the RCVS Queen's Medal, and I would like to thank Peter Jeffries, Judy Fitzpatrick and Peter Wells for nominating me, and the committee for accepting the case that was made. I first went to Stirling in 1973, intending to carry out a PhD, and then returned to general practice, but eventually stayed for 42 years. The planning wasn't too good. When I arrived, there was no salmon aquaculture industry. and I've been very fortunate in working closely with industry and government in helping to establish a very important Scottish success story. Also developed in Scotland during my time at Stirling was the culture of turbot, dover sole and eels, and my students have gone on to develop the farming of bass and bream in the Mediterranean and other species internationally. There were no textbooks on fish disease at the time, and we were faced with many new disease conditions. The application of basic diagnostic principles learned at the Cambridge Vet School allowed the resolution of such challenges, and this has been the basis of the training provided at Stirling since those early days. Without doubt, the most satisfying element of my career has been involvement with large numbers of international postgraduate students. They now have significant impact on worldwide aquaculture, holding key positions within production, pharmaceutical and feed companies, as well as academia and government. I think my timing was particularly fortunate, and it has been a very rewarding journey. Thank you.
In 2011, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the veterinary nursing qualification. And to mark this, the Veterinary Nurses Council launched a Golden Jubilee Award to recognise exceptional contributions to the veterinary nursing profession and positive contributions to animal welfare. I'm very pleased to announce that the Veterinary Nursing Golden Jubilee Award for 2016 will be bestowed on Miss Louise O'Dwyer. And I'd like to invite Liz Cox, the Chair of the Veterinary Nurse Council, to present the award.
At a time when the public profile of the veterinary nursing profession has been going from strength to strength, it seems very apt to confer this year's Golden Jubilee Award to Louise O'Dwyer, someone who has pioneered awareness throughout the profession. She has shown from time and time again what it means to be an advocate, a researcher and a volunteer. In short, what it means to be a veterinary nurse. She has published on a global scale, engaged with boards across the UK and US, fought to reduce antimicrobial resistance, and as our nominator said, she has acted as a mentor, a manager and a friend to veterinary surgeons, veterinary nurses, animal care assistants and receptionists alike. This award is the highest award we can confer on a veterinary nurse, and it was relaunched to recently focus on leadership and ambassadorial influence. We cannot think of a veterinary nurse who more seamlessly unites these two qualities. Since qualifying as a veterinary nurse in 1999, Louise has continuously striven to advance veterinary education, research and practice. She was the first veterinary nurse to be appointed clinical director within CVS, working at the time, the largest and busiest out-of-hours clinic in the UK. She has lectured throughout the UK as well as the US, Australia and Europe, and her particular passion is for raising awareness about the impact of antimicrobial resistance, which has led to her long-term volunteering at the Bella Moss Foundation. There, she creates infection control guidelines and provides education and advice on dealing with patients' multi-drug resistant infections around the world. She has never stopped striving for qualifications that can improve the welfare of those in her care. She has a diploma in advanced veterinary nursing, both surgical and medical, and is currently pursuing a PhD in MRSA epidemiology and wound biofilms. She is also a member of veterinary organisations, working not on one, not two, but 3 BSAVA committees, and can't seem to stop writing. She is the author of 3 nursing textbooks, a contributor to numerous textbooks in both the UK and the US, and is due to have a further book published on infection control later this year. When you throw in her additional contributions to over 35 journal and magazine articles across the UK, US and Canada, you can get an idea of the impact she has had and what a great part she has played in raising the profile of the UK veterinary nurse. Please all thank me in joining her for her incredible dedication and her immense contributions to the veterinary nursing profession. Louise, may I congratulate you on your achievements.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd just really like to thank the RCVS. It's a huge honour to accept this award, and in all honesty, I don't feel like I do anything any different to any other nurse does. I still hugely enjoy veterinary nursing. It's my absolute passion. It's what I enjoy doing every day. People can say I don't have a great work-life balance, but I enjoy what I do. So I think I have a great work-life balance because I get to enjoy what I do every single day when I'm in work. I particularly want to thank Veterinary, the organisation I work for, because without them, there's no way I'd be able to get to do the lecturing that I do around the world. So I'm hugely appreciate them allowing me to do that. And I'd also like to thank my family, because my mum particularly looks after my dogs whilst I'm away, wherever I am, around the world. So thank you very much again.
The next category is Honorary Associateship of the Royal College. This is a prestigious honour conferred to a small number of non-members of the RCVS each year in recognition for their special contribution to the veterinary sphere. Today we're delighted to bestow an Honorary Associateship upon Professor David Lane. The next category is Honorary Fellowship by election. This is our opportunity to recognise members of the college who have far exceeded expectation in their contribution to the profession through special eminence and service to the cause of veterinary science. The first person to be elected an Honorary Fellow today is Professor Martin Hugh Jones. The second Honorary Fellow to be elected today is Dr. Ian Wright. We come now to the presentation of fellowships. The award of fellowship by meritorious contributions to learning is awarded to Professor Michael Reichel, whose subject was selected infectious causes of reproductive failure in cattle. While sadly Michael is not able to join us today as he's based in Hong Kong, he was in the UK a few weeks ago and he was able to come to the college and be presented with his fellowship then. So that takes us on now to the presentation of diplomas. We come now to the presentation of the diplomas in advanced veterinary nursing. Small animal diplomas are awarded in the absence of the candidates, and these are Melanie Jane Broughton, Nicola Victoria Chido, Emma Louise Cotty, Adele Emma Duckworth, Mary Ferguson, Louise Ruth Elizabeth Gower, Karen Elizabeth Hole, Laura Jane Peters, Marie Sketney, Terry Camilla Smith, Caroline Barbara Stevens, Katie Louise Bonser. And also the Equine Diploma awarded in absence to Catherine Mary Lane. So congratulations to all of this year's recipients. So I'd now like to pass over to our Chief Executive, Nick Stace.
My Lord, ladies and gentlemen, it's amazing to think, isn't it, that the EU referendum happened just 3 weeks ago. So much has changed in such a short period. A new Prime Minister, someone who was planning to be Prime Minister is now going to be our Secretary of State, Angela Leadsom. A new set of government priorities yet to be announced. And with Brexit dominating the agenda for many years to come, it makes our smooth and planned transition to a new president seem a little boring. We have pledged ourselves in helping to support a successful outcome to Brexit, to the new Prime Minister, to the Secretary of State, and to the new Secretary of State responsible for EU exit negotiations. We've done so because Brexit matters to these veterinary professions. 27% of our registrants are EU nationals. Half of all new registrants every year are from the EU. Most vets involved in public health are from the EU, and much of the regulations that govern our daily lives are from the EU. Under very soon-to-be President Tufnell, well, in fact, you are President, aren't you, President, already? I'm sorry. Under President Tufnell following the AGM, we've established a presidential task force to help us look at all those issues that we will need to look at so that we can ensure the best interests of the veterinary profession, the public, and animal health and welfare are served. But while Brexit seems to have taken the world by surprise, looking to the future and being planned and thoughtful about what it all means to us is something that we have become well practiced at doing. Over the last few months, through Vet Futures and VM Futures, we've been shining a spotlight on the future of the veterinary professions. Perhaps the most important lesson that we have learned is that the professions can only be in charge of their future if they are willing to engage with the world that is changing around them. We cannot resist change, we need to embrace it. We need to work out what it means for all of us and take action to take control of the situation. You don't have to be a futurologist to know that the digital disruption that has hit every sector we can think of will also hit the veterinary sector. A few years ago, it would have been inconceivable that the largest taxi firm in the world would own no taxis, that the largest chain of hotels in the world would own no real estate. But Uber and Airbnb have shown us that disruption can happen on a global scale and at phenomenal pace. Already in the States, Skype-based consultations are taking place. Wearable technologies for animals are transforming the information that we can use as vets to diagnose. Of course, there is the potential for harm, but there is also an opportunity for great advances in animal welfare and for more animals to receive better care. And it won't be easy to regulate, particularly if services are offered cross borders and vets in other countries offering direct-to-consumer services to consumers here. To think that just a few years ago, we limited the size of brass plates that vets could hang on their doors advertising their practices. In fact, I can reveal our outgoing president used to park his van in the street in order to advertise his practice. In fact, I'm sure there's disciplinary somewhere in there. It was an ambulance, fine. That's all the much better. You're trying to justify yourself now. But now we live in an age where global veterinary services can broadcast into everyone's living room. Change will also come through growing consumer expectations, where already through social media, individuals in the professions are publicly named, shamed, and famed by consumer experiences. And change will also come, of course, through changing ownership models, where large-scale consolidations will happen and will affect the role of every vet and vet nurse in this country. All of this is putting vets and vet nurses under greater strain. Occasionally, I receive letters from excellent members of the professions who are considering retiring early because they're fed up with the pressures that they feel. And our response to date has been to be more compassionate about the way we handle concerns, and also to invest considerable sums of money in our Mind Matters initiative, which has been broadly welcomed right across the profession. However, there is more that needs to be done. One way I'd like us to help is to be much clearer about the kind of culture we would like to see that allows the professions to be their very best. A culture that encourages members of the profession to learn from each other, to learn from their mistakes, to engage clients with the challenges of what they do, and to be more open when things go wrong, to manage public expectations, to move away from the blame culture. There is an unrealistic demand on the medical and caring professions at large in this country, that they will get it right 100% of the time, that perfectionism is all that is acceptable. While it is understandable that people might hope for perfectionism, we are all human and it is unrealistic. We need a frank debate about this issue because currently the issue of perfectionism distorts expectations. It almost certainly distorts professional behaviour, and it can lead to unnecessary fitness to practice cases at the RCVS. The fact that someone does something wrong is not a disciplinary issue. The fact that someone may feel they have to cover it up is. These are just some of the themes that we will be building into our approach over the coming months and years ahead. You might think it counterintuitive for a regulator to say to its profession that it's okay to make mistakes, but that is the message that we need to get out there. You might also think it counterintuitive for the regulator not to fight against changes in the marketplace that makes regulating that market tougher. But we know you cannot resist change, and we would like to be part of creating change that works. So we're dealing with the disruption of Brexit, the disruption of digital. We are also serious about dealing with the blame culture and continuing to improve what we do at the Royal College. I look forward to continuing these conversations with you over lunch and in the months and years ahead. Thank you. So before I hand over to Bradley for his last few moments as president, I would just like to say a few words. I'm about to move on to my 5th president, and as Jackie likes to remind me, you were my first. And contrary to my comments a little earlier, I happen to think actually the way that we change presidents is probably better than the way we change prime ministers. Each president stands on the shoulders of the one before, building on what is being achieved and focused on the legacy for the profession, not just for themselves. As we say goodbye to Stuart as Vice President, we thank you for being a reforming president. The popular touch, of course, with the doctor title, as well as getting down to the serious issues of governance and launching Vet Futures. And to Bradley for having been a president for all times. Not all of them easy, but you have provided a steady focus and nerves of steel and great attention to detail, hallmarks of a great poker player. And it turns out a great president too. And before we say goodbye to Bradley as president and welcome him to his new role as Senior Vice President, it's It's my pleasure to hand over to him for a review of the last year.
Well, thank you very much, Nick, and that's politics for you, isn't it? You can't hide from your past indiscretions. They're all, and current ones. They're all put under the spotlight. At least I should be grateful that it's happened at the end of my year. As I said before the AGM, the worst thing that can happen to me today is that I'll get sacked, and that's going to happen anyway pretty soon. So on to my last words, or hopefully not my very last words, but the last words before I part with the chain of office. The years rush past. I know every president says that. It does seem like just yesterday. Well, okay, perhaps the day before, since I was talking about the three most significant projects I'd chosen to highlight for the year ahead, or now the year behind, of course. I'm delighted and more than a little relieved to be able to report that we've made great progress on all three fronts. The first was the new fellowship, and we've literally been the victims of our own success. You may recall that, as well as being one of our highest honours, we're aiming to transform the membership into an active, learned society. I rather naively thought I would be able to welcome the first small batch of fellows at this AGM, but since the first round of the process was opened, the three fellowship credentials panels have been overwhelmed by nearly 60 applications. I'm delighted to say that we will therefore be holding a dedicated Fellowship Day on the 15th of October at the Royal Institute, where both Fellows Old and Fellows New will be invited. The concept of the fellowship might seem elitist, but I know that there is a determination by members of the Fellowship Board to ensure its objective will be to serve the benefit of the profession as a whole. The exact mechanisms are going to be developed by the fellowship itself, but I've heard talk of scientific meetings, seminars, and mentoring to help develop younger members of the profession. Just as our partner charity, RCVS Knowledge, is making great strides in helping to establish and apply the evidence base for clinical practice, I hope that the fellowship will help to develop the evidence base for policy formulation. Our profession is, by and large, a very modest bunch, and the principle of having to put oneself forwards for consideration by the Fellowship Credentials Panel may seem in itself challenging, especially for those applying by the route of meritorious contributions to practice. However, I know that there are really very many unsung heroes working out there in practice who not only deserve the recognition of a fellowship, but could contribute a great deal to its work. So go on, recognise your own worth and submit an application. Secondly, the relaunch modular practice standards scheme. I'm pleased to be able to inform you that Stanley is alive and well. Now, for those of you that didn't know, Stanley is the moniker given to our new software interface. The uptake's been fantastic, and the concept of continual improvement to obtain the good and outstanding awards in various service areas has been warmly embraced. We now have nearly 60% of eligible practices registered with the scheme, which is a great grounding for the day when we're allowed to make it truly compulsory. Lastly, of the three, Vet Futures and VM Futures have been a major feature of my year. The Vet Futures report with its 34 recommendations was published last November and really well received by the profession. We were then delighted that more than 80 people applied to our call to join our action group, which was charged with actually translating those 34 good intentions into what turned out to be 24 smart objectives. That's a massive piece of work, and I'm really grateful to members of the Vet Futures Action Group for all the efforts they put in. So these were very warmly received at our recent Vet Futures Summit, at which the VM Futures team also launched their report and action plan. And whilst it's true that the really hard work still lies ahead, These projects show every sign of achieving what they set out to do. A confident profession in charge of its future. Vet Futures was not only warmly received at home, but also by the Federation of Veterinarians in Europe, who are commencing their own version built on the foundations of ours. And I'm really pleased to welcome the President of the FVE here today. Although the recent referendum means that we'll no longer be part of the EU, we intend to ensure that the veterinary profession still remains strongly engaged with Europe as a whole in the coming years. I've already made it clear that overseas graduates who are already on our register will remain there. And we're going to be doing our bit to ensure that the government is aware of the important role that overseas vets play in helping to safeguard human and animal health in the UK. It's also worth mentioning that one theme of the recommendations of Vet Futures was one voice, the need for us as a small profession to speak with a united front whenever it's appropriate. We've worked closely with our colleagues in the British Veterinary Association on the project, and our relations with them have been excellent. And I'd like to welcome our colleagues from the BVA here today. The feedback I've received has seen that this relationship between the Royal College and the BVA as appreciated as a very positive thing in its own right. Vet Futures, Regional Question Time and many other engagements have brought me into contact with a significant proportion of the profession during the year. I've been attending some such meetings as a RCVS officer since I became Treasurer 6 years ago. And I have to say that over that time, the attitude of those attending the meetings really has become gradually more positive. Without wanting to sound too much like Luke Skywalker of Star Wars fame, I do feel that the RCVS is increasingly being recognised as the force for good that I believe it is. Whilst we occasionally have to wield the stick of the disciplinary process, and it's the code of professional conduct that makes us the honourable and respected profession that we are, we have many more carrots in our bag aimed at encouraging good practice and advancing standards of veterinary care. It was significant that the ongoing work of the Mind Matters initiative tackling mental health issues within the profession and led by the RCVS was voted the most important initiative at the recent Vet Futures Summit. Now, one issue that's really exercised my mind as a result of all discussions at Vet Futures and the issues that have come out of it is the question, what is a vet? Now, I know what you're thinking. We were worried that this guy was a bit flaky when we elected him as president, and now we've discovered that the outgoing president doesn't even know what a vet is. But bear with me, because actually the answer is not quite as obvious as you may think, and I believe it's of fundamental importance. The issue is that a major theme of the Vet Future project focuses on the fact that whilst clinical practice, of course, is a perfectly valid career choice, being a vet can be about a lot more than that. And during the course of our consultations, we certainly discovered vets working very effectively in a wide range of spheres that included research, education, of course, commercial business, management consultancy, policy formulation, and One Health, to name but a few of the massive areas that we came across. Well, are these people failed vets? No, of course, not at all. Although sometimes we hear about them talk about their work almost apologetically. I believe that they're all very much part of our profession, and they actually have a major influence on the effect that we have within our society. So if we're agreed that being a vet is about much more than just the option of being a clinician, is it then correct that the schools are training vets primarily to be safe in practice from the day that they qualify? That's more than theoretical, because the veterinary school's curricula are geared towards meeting the day one competencies that the RCVS, that's us, prescribes. So have we got those competencies right? Should they be broader? Should they be less geared towards practice? And that would then leave room in the course for maybe a broader range of education. And this is in turn important, because if we don't turn out practitioners at day one, then we would have to have some form of limited licensure, perhaps a pre-registration period before a vet is really let free on the public and their animals, because our major obligation is to protect the welfare of animals and to ensure that when people do go in practice, they're safe and start working independently, that they're safe to do so. So, you know, it's a big deal. It's an important question. And as I say, I really have thought about this apparent dilemma long and hard, and I've discussed it with quite a few people. What is that USP, that unique selling point that actually makes a veterinary graduate so special and so unique? And so, having spoken to many people who employ vets, my personal conclusion is that actually it is the melding of the undergraduate course combined with a period in practice that actually produces that perfect product. Now, I'm not saying that every vet has to spend some time in practice before finding their ideal niche in life. There's going to be exceptions to that. But in general, it's the blend of the two that produces that desired effect. The undergraduate curriculum provides a broad mix of theoretical knowledge, clinical reasoning, research methodology and technical skills, but it's a period of actually getting out there in the big wide world, dealing with the practice team, dealing with the animal owning public, and that adds a whole range of competencies such as team working, advanced communication skills, emotional intelligence, information processing, personal development and time management, to name but a few. Well, what's the relevance of all that? Firstly, I think it means that the apparent paradox between a course geared to developing the RCVS Day 1 competencies and embracing the fact that long-term vets have a much wider range of choices than clinical practice is now, in my opinion, not really an issue. We should continue to train the vets of the future to be practitioners in the confident knowledge that their degree plus some practical application of that is actually what makes them into eminently employable people who are uniquely suitable for a wide range of jobs. And secondly, and I think equally importantly, I would say that graduates shouldn't feel that they've some way failed if they find that practice does not suit them. We do know that there is a significant level of disillusionment that sets in 4 or 5 years after graduation. And there are many things that we can do as a profession to try and actually enhance that career in practice and perhaps help to reduce that. But social studies have shown that the expectation that a vocational degree such as veterinary medicine is necessarily a career choice for life is changing. And many of the stress-related health issues that occur at that stage in their career may result from a feeling of being trapped within practice. Vet Futures has shown us that far from a veterinary graduate being trapped within practice, their degree can be a passport to a wide range of rewarding careers. So I've only focused on 3 areas of work of the college, and it's just a small part of all the work that does go on. And I could carry on well past lunch outlining them, but I won't. I just want to finish by saying what a wonderful team I've had the pleasure of working with over my past year. The whole of council has been remarkably supportive and constructive through thick and thin, and I thank you for it. And in particular, the operational board has worked as a truly effective team. A significant network of people put in masses of work behind the scenes supporting what we do. And if I've admitted to say thank you to each individually, I do apologise now and thank you publicly. And of course, a special thanks to my darling wife, Liz, my 2 great kids, and their even greater families. I apologise for having been a part-time husband, father, and grandfather over the past year. I think Liz worked out that over the past 6 weeks, our dog sitters actually stayed in the house more than we have. But I thank you from the depth of my heart for all your support. And finally, translating all those good intentions I've spoken about would not, into action, would not have been possible without the sterling efforts of all the staff at the Royal College, led so ably by Nick and his senior management team. We know that the college has been recognised as a great place to work, but you are also great people to be working with. So many, many thanks to you all, to your team. And so finally, the theme today is looking to the future. I suppose I could just resort back to those fine words of that great sage, Luke Skywalker. May the Force be with you. Technology is going to transform the way that we function. So to find out more and try and get a handle on it, I went to the NAVC conference in Orlando earlier this year. Well, come on, I mean, somebody had to do it. Not only to host a reception for our overseas members, but also to try and find out more about the effect that technology is likely to have and how we as a profession need to adapt to work with it and to embrace it. And I discovered many others there grappling with the same questions. But there was one guy I met who stood out amongst them because he seemed to have a much clearer handle on where we were heading than anyone else. And I'm delighted to say that he's travelled across from Canada to share his vision with us today. Dr. Adam Little is a veterinarian, but also uniquely a graduate of Singularity University. That sounds like something out of Star Wars, doesn't it? But it's actually a Silicon Valley-based institution focused on exploring and understanding exponential technologies and their impact on our world. He's acted as an advisor to the Canadian Veterinary Medical Association on telemedicine. He's president of a consultancy called Exponential Vet, which helps the veterinary profession harness disruptive technologies, and has recently become director of the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center at Texas A&M University. By way of contrast, he's also spent time working in remote villages of Tanzania for the Chief Veterinary Officer of the Canadian government, working on how technology can address food security and animal health issues. Before moving on to the investiture of the new president, I'd like to hang on to the chain for just a little bit longer and say a few words about our departing Vice President, Stuart Reid. It's, Stuart, always sad when it comes to losing a member of a closely knit officer team. But as Stuart showed in the London Marathon last year, he's someone who's going to run and run. I thought that was a pretty good play on words, personally. He had a tremendous influence in his time as RCVS president, particularly in kicking off the Vet Futures project and pushing forward our governance reforms. But perhaps he will, as you've already heard, always be most fondly remembered for his change to the title that we vets are now permitted to use. And it's said that Stuart did more doctoring last year than every branch of the PDSA put together. Oh yes, Stuart, then there are the jokes. I must explain that Stuart has a repertoire of some very good jokes. They're excellent, but there's just very few of them. They're so good that they've actually had me in stitches. Not just the first time I heard them, but the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. No, really, it's the way he tells them. But seriously, Stuart's been a tremendously supportive Senior Vice President. I've relied upon his excellent advice many times during the year. I once accused him of having a wise old head on a young body, but I'm not sure he took it as the compliment that it was meant to be. Stuart, I'd like to thank you most sincerely for all the excellent work you've done for the college, and in advance for all the good work I'm sure you will continue to do in your time on council. It's the season of change in more places than just the RCVS, and now we come to the moment where the new president, Chris Tufnell, is invested with the chain of office. I now know how our now ex-Prime Minister felt earlier in the week when he said, "I was the future once." Following a degree in agriculture and environmental science from Newcastle University, Chris worked for a year in Zambia before returning to study for a veterinary degree at Glasgow University, where he graduated in 1999. Chris runs an equine and companion animal practice in West Berkshire, which employs 5 vets and 5 support staff. As a mere stripling, or perhaps I should say yearling, shortly after graduating, he served on the highly influential RCVS Education Strategy Steering Group, which laid the foundations of the professional development phase and the modular Cert AVP. Despite a busy practice and family life with 2 young sons, Chris has made regular charity trips to Africa and to India. Seeing the suffering of the developing world at first hand has made him all the more appreciative of the opportunities available to us in our society. Chris was elected Vice President this time last year, so we've already benefited from his compassion and common sense on the operational board, and I'm delighted that he was confirmed as President for the next year by Council at its meeting earlier this morning, as I'm certain that Chris is going to make a truly excellent President, given his deep understanding of the profession and the challenges it faces, his empathetic communication skills, and at last bringing a bit of sartorial panache to the post. Chris, you are now the future of the RCVS, and I'm delighted to say that the future is looking very bright indeed.
Bradley, it's been a tremendous pleasure to work with you. Bradley started the year by saying that he wanted to do everything just a bit better, and he certainly has done that. Bradley, you've been an excellent president, and I'd like you to join me just so we can give you the past president's medal and show our appreciation. As my first official duty as President, I'd like to welcome Professor Stephen May as Vice President of the College. Stephen was elected to this position at the March meeting of Council and reconfirmed today. Stephen graduated from Cambridge in 1980, and after spending time as a large animal house surgeon at Liverpool and in general practice, he undertook further training in equine surgery and diagnostic imaging at Liverpool, subsequently gaining diplomas in veterinary radiology and equine orthopaedics. He then studied for a PhD at the Royal Veterinary College, followed by a return to Liverpool as lecturer in equine orthopaedics, and was recruited to the Royal Veterinary College in 1993 to rebuild the equine clinical services and expand the equine research focus. In 1997, he became head of the Farm Animal and Equine Clinical Department. He was appointed the college's vice principal for teaching from 2000 to 2013 and also held the post of deputy principal. His broader contributions to animal health and veterinary education include being vice chairman of the Horse Trust and a member of the Higher Education Academy panel involved in the award of National Teaching Fellowships. He is currently vice president of the European Board of Veterinary Specialisation, and a past president of the European College of Veterinary Surgeons. My Lord, ladies and gentlemen, I'm deeply honoured to be here. Thank you very much. I'm immensely proud to be the 145th President of the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons. And as a horse vet, it somewhat amuses me that it was another horse vet who looked after Queen Victoria's horses and 3 subsequent monarchs' horses, John Dollar, whose portrait hangs in Belgravia House in the council chamber, the one that looks like Freddie Mercury, many of you may have seen him, who presented this chain of office to the college and persuaded council to present these robes to the college 113 years ago. We're nothing if not well turned out. It'll reassure those that are normally resident in this building to know that whilst, as Adam has made it quite clear, we need to innovate to regulate in these rapidly changing times, the principles we apply in doing that regulation are based on very firm foundations. I'd like to thank the team that's made it possible for me to be standing here at all. The council and staff of the RCVS and my colleagues at Coach House Vets continue to be hugely supportive and understanding of the extra work that being president will entail, both for me and for them. I'd also like to thank my family, my 2 boys, Harry and Hector, and my wife, Nikki, for their support and encouragement. And as ever, this is very much a team event. Now, you will remember that Apple's late CEO, Steve Jobs, used to stand on a stage like this regularly, revealing their latest products. And I want to describe to you 2 very special products. They have tremendous functionality and boundless memory. Most have an incredibly short startup time to full performance at any time of the day or night. They constantly update. They rarely come up with an error message, and so rarely to be almost negligible, perform an illegal operation and need to be shut down. They are, of course, MRCVS and RVN. This year, MRCVS Mark 172 and RVN Mark 9. So what do these few letters mean to those that have earned them? In preparing for this role, many vets and nurses from all over the UK and in many different fields have been surprised to receive a call from me out of the blue. Overwhelmingly, I found that I was talking to a person with integrity, a person who can be trusted, a person who set all personal concerns aside to look after the welfare of animals committed to their care, a person who will defend the defenceless by being an advocate for the animal, by being there and by caring. And why did I find myself talking to such impressive individuals? Because of the very high standards that are set by the RCVS. These individuals have chosen to live by these standards. They've chosen to stand up and be regulated. Now, like so many others, I'm proud, immensely proud, to be a member of a self-regulated profession, a profession that stands me, a general practitioner, in front of you today. And goodness, are we tough on ourselves. We set ourselves the highest possible standards, high standards of education and high standards of conduct. It's a fact that the vast, silent majority of M's, RCVS and RVNs should be incredibly proud, and more of that later. So what of the next year? It's been decided for me, really. At the Vet Futures Summit on the 4th of this month, we had a hugely energetic and inspiring day and set out a multitude of actions, and the RCVS will, of course, play its part in delivering these. Those of us who were there came away feeling that we had really taken control of our future. Now, David Attenborough, when he was asked when he'd got his interest in living things, turned to the person who'd asked and said, "When did you lose yours?" I feel the same way about the passion that I have for this profession. I had the great honour of welcoming over 200 new veterinary surgeons to our profession on Wednesday in Westminster Hall, and our immediate Senior Vice President was invited me there. The energy and enthusiasm and excitement that was coming from the floor was palpable. And yet, as our Vet Futures report found, that within 5 years, 50% of them may be disillusioned. And at the same time, a number of veterinary nurses will have left the profession. I think it's incumbent on us, those of us who are still passionate about the profession, to ensure that they have a bright future and we all play our part. And I commend to you your action plans. As we set ourselves very high standards, it's right that we should expect similar high standards from those that we work alongside in delivering animal health. To this end, we will continue to shine a light on those that also work in our arena, the paraprofessionals. Through our Associates and Exemption Orders Working Party, we'll be continuing to work into seeing who we can bring into the fold by helping them to raise their own standards and to set and up and hold and advance them as we do ours. Finally, I would also like to drive forward our international profile by keeping us looking outwards, as by helping others, we truly help ourselves. Nick's spoken about the impact of Brexit, and the task force we are setting up will be working on that. However, we have 2,769 members who are practicing overseas. Many of them, although not being regulated by us, living by the standards that we set. Many of them, when questioned, say that they wear their MRCVS with pride, that it is a kite mark of their qualifications. Now, I've seen at first hand in Africa and India what the delivery of veterinary care can do for the welfare of animals in these regions and the well-being of the people that frequently depend on them. As one of the richest nations on earth, we will further investigate what we can do through knowledge transfer and support to help raise the standards of veterinary care in developing countries. Now, sadly, we often hear that there are vets and nurses who live in fear of the RCVS. This is something of which I'm personally ashamed. Being particularly mindful of the role that fear and anxiety play in mental health, I will do everything I can to replace that fear. Alongside the work that Nick has announced into the no blame culture, I will be encouraging all hard-working vets and nurses, whichever field they're in, to wear their badge with pride. Feel good about what you do. Feel great about what you do. Be proud. Thank you.